our session on the quality of meaning. So this is part of our monthly neuro-semantic series. We have the series on relationship, meta coaching, and parenting. And I'm so glad to be meeting all of you this evening. Guat Ching, our regular now, Elvish is becoming our regular as well. Ever since you came back to Malaysia. For how long, I don't know. Check you, enjoy your iced lemon tea after your 5 km walk. And Danielle, continue your 10,000 steps. Take back the watch from your daughter. And Tessie, thank you. Pleasure seeing you this evening.
I didn't realize that there were so many series. Must invite me.
So I have 4 themes going on. Neuro-Semantics, that's the first Thursday of the month. Then leadership, self-leadership, the second Thursday of the month. Then the third Thursday of the month is the meta coaching system. And the fourth Thursday of the month, I delve into parenting. That is also one of my areas that I'm interested in. And also I like to
please invite me.
I'd also like to welcome Veronica for joining us. So glad that you're able to join us, Veronica. You here for the first time?
No, I think second, but I came like quite a while ago.
Okay, thank you for returning to this session, and I hope that this evening will be useful to all of you. In the 60 to 90 minutes that we are here together, we'll be discussing on the meaning scale, quality controlling meanings, quality controlling cognitive distortions, quality and quantity and quality of semantic loading, and the final point we'll be discussing on sacralizing, the ultimate in making quality meanings. Now, as usual, to remind you that I will pause for discussion after each main point. This is to invite questions or comments and contributions from any one of you. And I also want to welcome those who like to think out loud. Do your thinking out loud in the room so that we can also enjoy what it is that you are thinking about. As usual, my style is to be light and humorous. So if I laugh or smile, I'm never laughing at you, but at our silly human qualities. When I say silly human qualities, that's also one of the points that we'll be discussing under sacralizing later on. Yeah, and my purpose for doing that is to lighten things up, reduce being serious, and be more real. And I notice, Aloysius, you have just joined us. So glad to have you join us. It's been quite a while that we've met, Aloysius. Yeah. Yes. So thank you for joining us. So let's move to our first point. Just this is an introduction. I will consider this as an introduction to the topic for this evening. I'll just share my screen with you so that you'll be able to follow with some of the items that we are discussing. Now, the first one as an introduction here is that while the ability to make meaning is the human heritage and human adventure, you cannot make just any meaning. That will not do. Yes, you and the rest of us are a class of life who make meaning. And yet, if you want to live fully and joyfully, you have to make high quality meaning. You have to invent, construct, and innovate meanings that are rich, robust, powerful, inspiring, encouraging, vigorous, and life-enhancing. And the reason for this is obvious. Meaning comes in a wide variety, in a wide range of qualities. Its whole range. There are lots of meanings that are toxic and dysfunctional. Now, toxic meanings will sicken your life and diminish you as a person. So just as you can create meanings that are fabulous and inspirational, you can also create meanings that diminish your potentials, that sabotage your highest and best as a person, and that spread thought virus to others to poison your social life and relationship. So it's a double-edged sword, this meaning making. Now, turning to the subject of the quality of meanings that you create, highlights a basic neuro-semantics principle. That is, the quality of the meanings that you make, create, and determine the very quality of life you live. So that's why I say it is a double-edged sword. If the quality of the meanings that you create are sick and toxic, then you create the quality of life that is sick and toxic. If you create meanings that are life-enhancing and inspirational, then your life becomes enhancing and inspirational. There is a wide range of degrees of quality from low to high. So in the next point, we'll be going into the scale. When meaning is degraded, there will be a psychological devastation, creating misery and unhappiness, and undermining a person's sense of being a healthy human being. In fact, it will reduce, degrade, or rob a human being of meaning and meaningfulness. And the person will sicken, weaken, and suffer the pathologies of meaninglessness. When you are deprived of meaning, no matter how much you have to eat and drink, no matter if you are a multi-millionaire and have fame and influence, take that meaning away and you can even lose the desire to live. Meaning plays the important role in your life and well-being. What are the different qualities of meanings that we humans can create? So that will be what we will be discussing in the second point and in short while. So let me pause here to invite any questions or comments from any one of you, just from the quick introduction about meaning making. We as the meaning makers, at the same time, it is a double-edged sword. If the meanings that we create are sick and toxic, then our lives become sick and toxic. If the meanings are healthy and enhancing, then our lives becomes healthy and enhancing. So, any questions or comments from any one of you? Go ahead. Yes, Tessie. I can't hear you, Tessie.
Okay, I've been in toxic leadership positions where bosses talk down to people and they employ highly egotistical methods to direct and dictate. And of course, I know so many men and women who think that they are who their titles say they are, or who equate who they are with how much they have. So when we're talking about meanings, these people make their own meanings, and in order to step out of the matrix, so to speak, what is the red pill? Is it self-awareness or what?
Yes, you've just said that, self-awareness. A part of what we'll be looking into is for you to just recognize those. recognizing those meanings is the first step in order for you to be able to move into more healthy meanings. Otherwise, you are caught in their matrix of meanings. So being able to step back and notice that's the matrix of meaning, and to say, no, that's not, those are not my meanings. And to bring on healthy, empowering meanings for ourselves. Yeah. Even in the context whereby you cannot verbally say anything to the boss, yes, we may have experienced those kind of bosses. At the same time, to be able to mentally take a step back and to be able to say, no, those are not the meanings that I will want for my life. Yeah, thank you, Tessie, for that. Shall we move to the next point? That is the meaning scale, right? So let's begin by scaling meaning as depicted in this slide. Obviously, there are different levels of quality of meanings that you can construct. We can now create a meaning scale and begin to gauge the quality of meaning on a continuum. In this slide, Michael has created such a continuum and has turned it upright as a vertical scale. This enables you to now gauge the quality of the meanings that you create and live by from 0 to 10. So this gives you the ability to evaluate and distinguish different qualities of meanings and to choose high quality meanings over low quality meanings. So these are the quality of meaning put on a vertical scale. So Michael has designed this meaning scale so that 0 stands for meaningless. And at the other end, 10 stands for those that are meaningful. Between these polar extremes, we can locate futile meaning. So futile meaning is down here, that from about 0 to 2. So that's futile meaning. Trivial and superficial meanings. So this is between 3 to 4 trivial meanings. Then we have the conventional meanings. So these are the meanings that our society ascribe to, and we also ascribe to those meanings. So these are conventional meanings. Then moving onwards into unique meanings. Now we are building up our unique meanings in this area, and these meanings are individual meanings, and it excites you and gives you that sense of direction to life. Then that is at level 7 to 8. And then finally, the most highly meaningful meanings that are sacred to you, that are rich, robust, and enlivening to you. So these are meanings that are sacred and expensive as you live for and contribute to something bigger than yourself. So these are the meaningfulness, meaning scale and index. And as you can see, that given the quality of meaning that you attribute to something, there is a corresponding emotional state that you will experience. Why? Emotion is the feel of meaning. So as you go up that ladder of meaning, then you are invoking states. So the quality of meanings that you create simultaneously generate the quality and content of your emotional life. So the feel of meaning that equates to this is that at the lowest level, when you are having meanings that are futile, toxic, disempowering, the state involved there, those are sick, futile, apathy, emptiness. So these are states that brings you down. Then moving up from the when you are operating from trivial or menial meanings, then you notice the cynicism that comes into your life, debunking, discounting. And I believe that you may have come across people whose behaviors reflect those states. So when we look at our behaviors and the behaviors of others, then it also gives us a peek, a window into the way that they are creating meanings for themselves. And as we go up higher the scale, higher that scale, then you have the normal, culturalized, to fit in with the convention when a person has conventional meaning. Now, going on to personalized meanings, that's when a person experiences that peak state. And beyond that are the states of fascination, wonder, ecstasy, engaged, and focus. So these are the states that relate to each level of meaning as we climb that meaning ladder. And on the feeling of the meaning, this equates to the emotions that you go through. So that's why we notice that when people's meanings are at the trivial or menial level or below that, then they go through life feeling that their life is shallow, is superficial. Whereas the moment you go up the ladder, then you are experiencing the emotions of sacralizing and re-sacralizing. So these are the meaning scales that we can look at, and the way that I view the scales is that noticing how the feel of meaning goes into the body. I can use my body as a measuring device to also tell me what's the quality of meaning that's running through my mind, and to be able to use the meaning making process in order to impact or influence the feel of the meaning in the body, and thereby controlling my emotions. So that's the meaning scale and index. So let me also pause here and invite any questions or comments with respect to the meaning scale and index. So that's the second point.
I just want, oh, sorry.
Ladies first.
Thank you. No, I just wanted to make a comment. I am in the area of mental health, and I do some volunteering in the same area, and I can see how the meaning scale plays out in some of the clients. Yeah, so I think it's very relevant, and most of the time our main work is to bring them up the scale to meaning, and I can see how they can get stuck in the lower rungs of the ladder.
Okay, thank you. Wonderful observation, that, Veronica. Yeah, and that's also why I keep on saying that leaders, your primary role is to be as meaning casters, because when you are leading people who are not skilled in creating higher level meanings, so that's when you begin to cast higher level meanings so that they can latch on to the higher level meanings that you cast out. And that is to a certain extent educational for these people, because now they begin to learn to embrace higher level meanings. Yeah. Okay.
Can you say more? Can you say more about your body is a scale to gauge?
Ah, okay. Yeah. It comes from understanding that our emotion is what we feel of the meanings. Emotion is the feel of the meaning in the body. Now, when the feel is weak, is low energy, then I know that it comes from a low level meaning. So when I am, let me give a quick example over here. A couple of years ago, I fell ill, and I was really struggling to get well again. Now, I was physically ill, and knowing that I can control how I feel in my body, I begin to access my states from the mind. However, that weakness was also in the body due to the illness. And as much as I tried to control in my mind, I was being pulled down by the body to be feeling weak and helpless. So noticing that, I'm able to make some changes. Okay, I'm feeling this weakness, not just because of my thinking that is defeating me. It is my body as well that's defeating me. So what I did was, I said, okay, I'm going to make my body physically better, and started on a physical exercise regime in order to counter that. Because whatever that I feel, our state, there are two royal roots to state: the mental and emotional. The mental and the body. Yeah, the mind and body creates are two royal roads to state. So beginning to use both the mind and the body to influence the state, and therefore experiencing a better quality of emotions in daily life. So I use the feel in the body as a feedback mechanism to tell me how I am thinking, and to use my thinking to influence how I'm feeling in the body, because it works both ways. So if
So that's in the context of health and well-being.
yes.
So, you know, I joke with myself, I say, as a woman, never trust your feelings. Because it can go, you know, it can go like this, because you don't know, because your subconscious is so can be so deep. You don't know what triggers you, and sometimes you feel, you know, out of whack for no reason, or something repels you and you don't know why. So, but is that really a gauge for the meaningfulness of what's in front of you? I don't think so.
Thank you for putting that. What I do is that I cover all bases, in the sense that what can influence your feeling, your emotion, your state, what influence your state are your meanings, and what can influence your states are also your body. So that's why whenever I feel any emotion, I'll just check. Is it due to the way I'm thinking, or is it something that's coming from the body? If, let's say, you've just stubbed your toe on a heavy furniture and you are feeling that pain, and because of that you are grumpy, you notice, I'm grumpy. Is it because the way I'm thinking, or is it because my toe? If you
So
know it's because
so that's the key, the quality control.
yes.
Yeah, the check, the critical thinking check.
Yeah, yeah. So it does not necessarily mean that, oh, there's something wrong with my meanings altogether.
Yeah.
It could be something physical as well, but
Yeah.
the quality control. Yeah, so that's also what we'll be discussing in a bit. Thank you, Ceci.
Thanks for that.
Right. Okay. So let's move to the next point, which is on quality controlling meanings. If the quality of your meanings is the quality of your state, the quality of your emotions, you can gauge the quality of your life by running a quality control on your meanings. So this was also what we were discussing a short while ago. Do this to make sure that you have high quality meanings as frames for yourself and your life. We have to do that because there is no inherent quality control process within the neurology. Yeah. With regard to what you put in your mouth and process through digestion, does have a quality control process. When you put something in your mouth, it has a quality control process. You have within your brain digestion system a process whereby if something is noxious and making you sick, you can vomit. You can expel it before it poisons you and undermines your overall well-being. But your mind doesn't have any automatic instinctive way of doing that. Mentally, your brain simply processes whatever you put into it. Hence, the old computer motto, GIGO, if you've heard of that, garbage in, garbage out. So with food, the moment, let's say you take food that is already bad, the moment it touches your tongue, your body is already processing and saying, no, this is not good. However, when it comes to thoughts, there is no such thing as that process. So if you put toxic, crazy, hurtful, ugly, and dysfunctional ideas and beliefs into your mind-body system will simply process that information, and then, oh, this is the kicker. It seeks to actualize it. It comes in and it starts to begin actualizing it. There is no automatic quality control for your mind. For that, you have to set some criteria and standards. You have to consciously decide what fits and what does not for your life. And that means to rise up to this level and run a quality control on your meanings. So you have put meaning there. This is when you need to go meta to that, beyond that, in order to quality control that. So this also represents one of the central ways that you can take charge of your meanings, emotions, and life. As Abraham Maslow puts it, the neurotic is not emotionally sick. He is cognitively wrong. So when we have a cognitive, a wrong understanding of something, then that makes us sick. It is not just emotional. Okay, so this is where we need to quality control the meanings, and one of the things that we need to take care are the cognitive distortions. So that will be in our next point. So let me just invite any questions or comments. Thank you, Guaching, for putting in there. It is like if you are talking to yourself, please make sure you tell yourself the good ones. Yes, you need to do that. So that's why in one of the sessions that we have, I can remember a few months ago, I talked about sometimes running our meta programs in a certain mix, it will get us into that downward spiral in terms of our thinking. So we need to be aware of that. Yeah. Any questions or comments? I'd like to welcome Ines into the room. Ines, how are you? What time is it over there, Ines?
Good morning. Yeah, sorry, here is good morning because it's 9:33 a.m.
Okay. Glad that you're able to join us.
Good night for you. Wow. Sorry for being late, Mazuki.
Pleasure that you're able to join us. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's move to the next topic. Quality controlling. Yeah. So this next topic is quality controlling cognitive distortions. If you want a way to diminish the quality of your meanings and therefore life, adopt any one of the dozen or more cognitive distortions. I'll just go through in a short while some of them. So these are really surefire way for you to diminish your life. When you have these cognitive distortions running in your life, then you will have the power to make yourself and others miserable. So first thing, what are cognitive distortions? And I believe many of you are aware of this. They are thinking patterns that you first use as you constructed meaning as a child. So to understand the cognitive developmental process, because as a child, those meanings make sense. It's just that you do not want to continue with those meanings because your mind is developing, your body is developing, so those meanings make sense then. So cognitive distortion, it starts young. It's just that many people, they bring it into their adult life. Yeah, they are the distortions that ultimately disempower by creating limitations. For an adult, a cognitive distortion is a style of thinking and processing information that distorts things in a non-useful ways. These thinking styles or patterns are mostly the primitive ways of thinking which you learned as a child. And if you perpetuate today, will compose faulty perceptions and increase your misery. Yet, when you use these ways of thinking and reasoning as an adult, you inevitably create ill-formed and inaccurate mental models that imprison you in nonsense and limiting possibilities. These make up your meaning attribution and explanatory styles. And because everything habituates, repeat them, and they will become your unconscious patterns for processing information, your automatic frames. Let's take one example that a child creates meaning. Parents say, don't talk to strangers. Strangers can be dangerous. You go through school, you go through college, you bring that way of thinking and you begin working in company and you go into the company, these people are strangers and you don't talk to them. How are you going to work there? So don't talk to strangers may work for a 5-year-old. At the same time, that 5-year-old needs to begin to understand the context for don't talk to strangers. So these are what we call cognitive distortions. So let's take a look at the list of cognitive distortions versus the list of empowering cognitions. From distortions, we want to move into empowering cognitions. Let's take the first one, overgeneralizing. Strangers are dangerous. So what we want to do is to be able to move into contextual thinking. So what's the context for that? Another one is all or nothing thinking. Yeah. And moving into both and thinking. And as I mentioned, that all or nothing thinking, I remember my daughter, my youngest daughter, when she was very small, she has this, little children, they have that all or nothing thinking. They either like something or hate it. There is no in between. It's all or nothing. And there were few instances whereby she loved something so much, and then when she, for example, loves eating a certain food, and then it comes to the point whereby she doesn't like it anymore, and she would go on and say, I never liked that. So that all or nothing, either like or dislike, that kind of thing. So in adult life, to have a better, well-formed map, we want to move into both and thinking. That yes, you can like some things, and yes, you may dislike it in a certain other context. Okay. Next is labeling. Yeah. Instead of labeling, and labeling are used so frequently in order to get people to like or dislike other people, and these are things that are happening in our society as well. So going into reality testing in the context of racial disharmony or racial discord. You can have people from one race labeling people of another race with certain behaviors like stealing or being stubborn. I remember within the Arab world, when I was a student, there were these Arab students who live amongst us, and there is this group of Arabs from the lineage of Tamimi. And amongst the Arabs, the Tamimis are considered as the most hard-headed. So this is labeling. The Tamimi are the hard-headed people, and they go to the extreme that if you were to, there was this guy, he hammered a nail on the wall because he wanted to hang a picture, and as he hammered, he hit, and the nail bounced back, and they were all shocked, and they wanted to know what happened. So they went to the other side of the wall, and they saw Tamimi resting his head on the wall. So when the nail hit his head, it just bounce off. So these are the kind of labeling that people make. Okay, so this is where we want to be able to go for reality testing. Next example is blaming. So instead of blaming, to be able to move into responsibility thinking. Another one is mind reading. Oh, don't people love to mind read? So moving away from mind reading and go into current sensory information. Yes, we do all this mind reading because, for example, between in relationships that we are familiar with people, then to a certain extent I would say almost automatically mind read what our partner does. However, the healthy way is to check, not just go with the assumptions and mind reading. Okay, next one is prophesizing. Now, prophesizing is when you say that this is going to happen and that is going to happen, and especially in the context of corporate world, the boss or whatsoever will prophesy. This is going to happen. If you do this, this is going to happen. If you don't do this, that is going to happen. And when you are communicating, I'm taking the example in the context of corporates. If the leader is communicating in that way, what happens is that the followers will not want to voice their views because it is so rigid there. So instead of speaking from prophesizing, going into tentative predictive thinking. It says that, in my view, that if we were to do this, notice, if we were to do this, then this might happen. What do you think? In that way, you are opening up the channels of communication. Moving on, emotionalizing. Instead of emotionalizing about things, we move into witness thinking, to be able to witness what's happening and not move into that emotionalizing about things. Next is personalizing. People say something and then you personalize it and then you emote from there. Instead of personalizing, learn to be objective thinking, to be noticing the non-verbals, the verbals that a person is communicating to you, and to be able to ascribe empowering meanings to what they are saying instead of personalizing to self. Now, the other one is awfulizing. It gets worse when somebody overgeneralizes and then awfulizes. So it gets worse when that happens. So instead of awfulizing, the remedy is to go into meta-cognitive thinking. Next, should-ing. You should do this. I should do that. This should-ing. So it's a must. You have to. So it gives the impression that I have no choice. It's something that I have to do. So going into choice thinking, even when it is something that you are, because of constraint, you need to take that particular action to be able to take that action from the point of choice instead of because I must or I should. Yeah. Next is filtering. Instead of filtering, moving to perspective thinking, and then impossibility thinking, to going to possibility thinking. Yeah, that I remember, if I'm not mistaken, it was attributed to Confucius, who said it that people who think that that something cannot be done should let the people who think it can be done do that. So something like that. I'm paraphrasing that. So instead of going into impossibility thinking, moving into possibility thinking. And this last one is equally equally disempowering. There is discounting. Discounting meaning to say whatever that you already have, you discount. You say that, oh, it is not good enough. It is to some extent, Asians. I don't know about people in Brazil, Ines, but to a certain extent, Asians tend to have this false sense of modesty. So when people say something good about them, then they'll say, "Oh no, I am not that. Oh no." So they discount instead of accepting and saying thank you. So people say that, "Oh, you've done such a good job." Oh no, it's just something that is part of my job, and that's a normal thing for me to do. So instead of discounting, going into appreciative thinking, going to, oh, thank you. I'm glad that you say that what I did was good, to be able to move into that. Okay, so these are the list of the cognitive distortions, and also where do we want to shift our mind to in order to quality control these cognitive distortions. So we cover this quite not to say extensively. We introduced this in coaching essentials. However, there is a need for us to better understand it, because the solution to this dilemma of cognitive distortion is simple enough. That is to recognize them. So just being more familiar with what are the forms of cognitive distortions that comes into our way of operating The moment we are familiar with the forms, and then we begin to notice ourselves, that when we recognize that the ability to take this next step is quite fast for us. Otherwise, we do not recognize it, and that makes it all that more difficult. Yeah. So this is a great first step to clarity and choice. Unrecognized cognitive distortions actually set up what we call buttons, so that certain things can get you and push your buttons. When that happens, you then react in unthinking and defensive ways, thereby giving power to others to rattle your cage. So people can make use of your own cognitive distortions against you. So to be able to notice, I'm overgeneralizing there. So what should I do? Okay, going into contextual thinking. So you are catching yourself in that situation. Quality controlling your meaning making at this level means stepping back from your thinking itself, from your style and pattern of constructing meaning, and looking at it rather than the content of your thoughts. Looking at the pattern of construction meaning, not just the content. Asking the question, how cloudy and unclean or distorted is your creation of meanings? Could the problem be your style and pattern rather than the content of your thinking? So this brings us into the need to understand the thinking styles and how, when we are stuck in one style of thinking, that in itself can be disempowering to ourselves, and to be able to know how to move between the thinking styles, and that will be very useful, because once you notice that your thinking style is causing you to have this kind of distortion, to be able to move into the other spectrum of thinking style in order to overcome that. So you need to recognize them and bring that to awareness, and to consciously be moving into the other dimension. Yeah. So maybe if I would give, I would say my most current example is that I noticed lately that I have she's about now, that granddaughter is about 7 years old, and she's very a very active girl. And somehow whenever she comes to the house, I notice that I was tense. I noticed I was tense. And when I think about my other grandchildren, I notice that with them, I'm not so tense. I'm free. Then I begin to wonder: am I being what's the word? Unfair? Am I being unjust, that I favor one and not the other? So to me, that's not a good thing for a grandfather to be to favor one or the other. It's just that when that thought comes to mind, just bringing myself to the level of noticing my thinking. And then the point, Tessie, when you raised that point, is it really our meaning making, or is it something out there? And when I went through that thought process, then I realized, oh, no wonder I felt tense with this girl instead of the others, especially my eldest granddaughter, because my eldest granddaughter was much more active than this one. Okay. However, there is a 10-year difference between experiencing the activity of my eldest granddaughter and the activity of this granddaughter. Yeah. So when I notice that 10-year difference, oh, it's because of my physical health. That's different. Because with the eldest granddaughter, even when she was highly active, I was in better physical health and I was able to handle that activity. So no issues. But with this one, I'm beginning to be worried. That created that stress in me. And at first I thought, am I favoring one over the other? Then I noticed, oh no, it's not because of that. I need to take care of my physical health. So that's also the reason why I'm more motivated to exercise these days, so that I can play with my grandchildren better. So these are ways that once we are able to notice our way of thinking, to be able to quality control them, and to be able to come to solutions that can help us to relate and connect with the people better. Okay, so that's what we covered in that point just now on quality control cognitive distortion. So I'd like to invite any questions or comments from any one of you. So go ahead. Good. Okay, so let's move to our next point, which is the quantity and quality for semantically loading meanings. Semantically loading is a phrase that we use in neurosemantics when we want to speak about the amount of or the quantity of meaning that a person invests in something. So when we ask, how much meaning have you invested in this idea, person, or experience? We are asking about the quantity of meaning. This is also true when we ask, how intense is this for you? That's because the more meaning that you invest in something, the more it means to you. The more you will feel it, the more it will drive you, and the more energy it will produce. And the more it will govern your thinking, perceiving, and valuing. To semantically load is to give lots of meaning and highly significant meanings to something. And beware, it is also a double-edged sword. Now, to semantically load is to layer multiple meanings so that an event or person or experience now becomes to be seen and felt as highly meaningful. It is to sacralize, to make sacred. It is to sacralize, to view something as ultimately valuable or valuable in and of itself. Yet, so this is where I say it is a double-edged sword, yet not everything is inherently valuable. That's why not all sacralizing is useful or beneficial. If you give too much meaning to something which cannot bear it, you will treat it as far more important than it is, and thereby distorts its importance. Conversely, we often fail to semantically load an experience, idea, concept with enough meaning. It is just whatever it is and not semantically significant enough to provide the drive, the passion, and the motivation that you need. So if you were to look at that picture, what's your meaning about exercising? Just take the example of exercise. So is it just exercise? So how much meaning do you invest in exercise? Is it a lot or is it too little? So this is where sacralizing, putting on multi-layered meaning comes in. If you put in too little meaning and many people do that when it comes to exercise. That's why they don't exercise. Now, for me, I've put on the meaning that just as my organic body needs organic food in order to eat and in order to function, to live, I need organic food. My body also needs to exercise in order to feel well. So when I put in that meaning, then exercising becomes very very attractive to me. So this is where semantically loading events with meanings is a double-edged sword. If you do not put high meanings to things that are healthy for you, you will not do it. Now, around the world, most people have given far too much meaning to food and to eating. And during the holidays, people give even more meanings to food. And I'm giving this reminder because in a few days' time, we have the Eid celebration. And during Eid celebration here in Malaysia, there is that lemang, there is that rendang. So Ines, if you don't know what lemang and rendang is, you go to YouTube and you check over that. And most people, what happened? It's no surprise. People overeat to the point of becoming obese because they have overloaded that food with all of those meaning. They overeat because they have a belief frame about food that semantically loads eating, so that holding back and refusing to eat seems like and feels like such painful experiences of self-denial and even starvation. And that is why many of us psycho-eat. We eat for the purposes other than health, energy, and vitality. And most of us eat for love, reward, de-stressing, the good life, being social, following customs. When we do, our eating is semantically loaded. Because as a meaning maker, you are always giving meaning to things. Asking about the quality of or the quantity of your meaning enables you to discover if you have invested enough or too much meaning. Knowing that, then you can adjust the amount of meaning that you have attributed. Yeah. So what you can do is to ask yourself these few questions, because there are things that you want to load more meaning, things that will bring you better health. You want to load more meaning so that it becomes easy for you to do them. And there are things that are unhealthy for you, so you want to offload all of those meanings to say, it's just food. I'm laughing at myself because I come to the point whereby I ask my wife, is there anything that they have invented that can make me not hungry so that I don't need to eat food? So I've offloaded that to the point, okay, I'll just eat in order to prevent myself from being hungry. It doesn't mean I don't enjoy food, okay? So if you want to belanja me durian or coffee for that matter, I'm all for it. That's okay. There's a digression. Now, these are the set of questions that I would like to invite you to think about in order to quality control the meanings that you put to things. Are you putting too much meaning or are you putting too little meaning to things? Okay, so let's take the first one. So asking yourself.
是的，耶，太棒了！当客户总是最辛苦的。
Oh dear. Okay.
那因为这个辛苦的时候，然后帮我们打分，然后还有就是计时也是你那边吗？啊，可以啊。
Okay, I've just muted that. Thank you. Now, what is the quality of the meanings that you have invested in X? So let's say X is, yeah, we took the example of exercise. So what is the quality of meanings that you have invested in exercise? What is the quality of meaning that you have invested in your, I give the example of my grandchildren. So what is the quality of meanings that you have invested in grandchildren? That's one question. Another question, is the quality of the meaning poor, low, rich, robust, or delightful? Yeah. Is the quality of the meaning you give to something rich and robust enough when you navigate that experience? Yeah. And another one here is, do you feel that something is meaningless, futile, or trivial? So to ask yourself, and my only recommendation here is that anything that brings you health in the holistic sense, yeah, anything that brings you health in the holistic sense, then you want to semantically load it as much as you want to go, because that will make it second nature or make it automatic for you to engage in that particular activity or with that person. Yeah. So let's say if it is your partner or your children or your grandchildren, you want to load it with such empowering meanings so that you look forward to be with that person. It becomes very easy for you to do that. And if it is something that takes away from your health, takes away from your values, takes away from your wealth, you want to take off the meanings from those so that it becomes just is. It is not about trying to dislike or push away, because it's unhealthy for you to put disproportionately low meaning to, let's say, food, because sometimes people, they yo-yo, they put too much meaning on food to the extent that they cannot resist food, and then in order to counter that, they'll say, food is going to make me fat, food is going to make me ill, and then they become anorexic and they also kill themselves because of that. To be able to shift that meaning, to load it with the right amount of meaning so that you are naturally motivated to do the things that brings you health, and you naturally will do less of the things that doesn't bring you health. Okay, so that's about the semantically loading of meaning. So let me just pause here and invite any questions or comments from any one of you. Are you good with that? In that case, let's move on to the final point for today. That is sacralizing. Sacralizing, the ultimate in making quality meanings. If you really want to make some wonderful meanings of high quality, learn how to sacralize. And what is sacralizing? Sacralizing refers to the ability to see a person or event under the aspects of eternity, to see things as precious, sacred, special, highly significant, and important. Yeah? To see things as precious, sacred, special, highly significant, and important. That's sacralizing. Maslow wrote about sacralizing and exploring it, and in doing so said, this is the most important way of helping a person move towards self-actualization. So what does sacralizing involve? Sacralizing involves a fresh appreciation for all of life. It is the ability to look at things with a naiveness and newness. And with that perspective, then you avoid the toxic problem of getting used to your blessings. And don't we notice in ourselves and others that we get used to our blessings to the extent that they become something just ordinary. Yeah. So sacralizing means a freshness of appreciations, means you are able to savor the qualities of an experience. I love ice cream. You can give me any kind of fancy ice cream, yet I'll still enjoy a plain vanilla ice cream or a plain chocolate ice cream, and I'll also enjoy those specialty ice cream. So I'll just appreciate it as such. Little children are the best example of human beings who have that fresh appreciation for all of life. One of my grandchildren, he's about 5 years old now, do not ever kill an ant in his presence, because he values that little ant, and he'll spend even half an hour also just watching the ant walking on the floor. And if anyone were to accidentally step on the ant and kills the ant, he'll howl for a few minutes because so this is part of sacralizing. Little children are the best example. And Maslow speaks about this by saying, I have become convinced that getting used to our blessings is one of the most important non-evil generators of human evil, tragedy, and suffering. Ooh, that's really interesting. Yeah, getting used to something is a non-evil thing, but it generates human evil, tragedy, and suffering. For example, we eat food and the leftover, we just throw them out. There's nothing evil in that. However, the millions of tons of food that are just wasted, that's an evil, because millions of people live in poverty. So notice that that part of being used to the blessing can lead to something bigger and ultimately not useful for human beings. Another one over here is that ultimately sacralizing means choosing to always give rich meanings to things. Anyone can think positively when things are going well, to think positively when things are not going well. That is the real test of optimism and your ability to sacralize. And one of the things that I brings with me, that I believe is very useful, that I brings with me from the COVID and the lockdown that we have experienced in the last 2-3 years, is the feeling of gratefulness towards just any simple food that's in front of me. Why? Because during the lockdown, I noticed that many people lost their jobs. Many people went through a lot of difficulty, even just to get some food. I was watching this video. This one lady in Bangkok was mentioning that there was hardly any food, that even if she has a packet of of instant noodle. In Malaysia, we have that Maggi mee. She'll cut it into 6 so that it can be eaten over 6 meals instead of 1 meal. So one of the things that I bring, I'm retaining for myself from what I learned during the COVID is to have this gratefulness for whatever food that I have in front of me, because so many people were deprived of those during that time. So I'm taking it, and as the economy starts to build and all that, so this is something that I still want to retain, that appreciation of whatever food is. And the Japanese have got a very good saying whenever they eat, right? Ines, can you say it in Japanese? Thank you for this food. How is it said?
いただきます。
Yes.
Yes.
That's what my daughter-in-law teaches her sons. So just to be thankful for whatever food that they have. So choosing to always give meaning, rich meanings to things. Sacralizing includes an openness to fun, enjoyment, and humor. It means operating perspectively from a non-hostile philosophical humor. It is not humor about putting people down. It's about humor, noticing that sometimes we get stupid because we get too serious. So to be able to take a step back, not to take ourselves too seriously. So this is something coming from Abraham Maslow. The humor of the real consists in large part in poking fun at human beings in general when they are foolish or forget their place in the universe or try to be big when they are actually small. Now, from the perspective of a 63-year-old, I can say that I've been guilty of all of those before. And when I look at my life back, I said, oh my goodness, was I like that? And so when I see people operating in that way, let me give one example. When I was in the university, so very, the word is so very driven by ideology and all that. And we live in the part of town whereby people from different churches would come in order to invite us to their church. And during that time, I really enjoyed just debating with these guys. And when I think about it again, putting a distance of about 20, 30 years to that, I just shake my head at my own stupidity. I mean, neither of us were really listening to the other guys. We are just giving our opinion and nobody's gaining anything. And that's how I see, that's how silly we human beings could be. So I was also guilty of those kind of silliness. So that's why it makes it easy for me to be able to laugh at the silliness of human beings. So there you go. Sacralizing includes an openness to fun, enjoyment, and humor. And sacralizing is a loving response to life and to others. Again, Abraham Maslow mentioned that we must understand love. We must be able to teach it, to create it, to predict it, or else the world is lost to hostility and suspicion. Only love can overcome hostility and suspicion. And love is an admiration and awe of the beauty of life and values. It asks for nothing. It is an extending of yourself for the growth, well-being of another without expectations of return. So there you go, about sacralizing, the ultimate in making quality meanings. Because one, sacralizing involves a fresh appreciation of all of life. Sacralizing means choosing to always give rich meanings to things. Sacralizing includes an openness to fun, enjoyment, and humor. And sacralizing is a loving response to life and others. So there you go, regarding sacralizing, and I'd like to invite any questions or comments from any one of you with respect to this point. Go ahead.
I just like to say I enjoyed this session tremendously, Marzuki. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, it's an eye-opener, especially the last part about being open and being appreciative and grateful.
Thank you. I think that's one big takeaway that I take away from the COVID situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've come to the end of the session. I would like to spend a little bit of time to hear from you. What is it that you took away from this session? What new learning or what new realization that came to you through this session? So this I consider as my favorite part of the evening, to be able to listen from you. And as usual, I'd like to start off with the bottom of my screen. So I have Chantal at the bottom of my screen. Chantal, go ahead. Are you able to access your mic, Chantal? No? Okay. Then let me move on to Ian. Go ahead, Ian.
Thank you so much. It's very insightful, right? I enjoy it thoroughly, and learning new things during this session.
Thank you, Ian. And Chantal cannot speak right now. Otherwise, you might hear the toilet being flushed because she's in the toilet with her daughter. Thank you for putting that in the chat box. Elvish, go ahead, Elvish. What's your takeaway for this evening? Okay. Elvish, you're not able to access your mic? No problems. Moving on to Veronica. Go ahead, Veronica.
Yeah, hi. Okay, so okay, I was typing, it's gone now. Okay, so I just wanted to say that this talk has been very reaffirming. Very, like I know I can see that I'm on the right track in helping myself and others around me. And yeah, it's very encouraging. The talk is very encouraging. It's very insightful, and yeah, it's very reaffirming. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that from you, Veronica. Next, Ines, what's your takeaway for this morning?
Hi, Masuki. Well, first, thanks for the opportunity, and sorry for being late. I think that I lost important things. I started with the cognitive distortions that we use to create our meanings, our sentences that's related to our meanings. And one thing that I got from there, which I think is one answer to my question, my personal question, is the discount and the appreciative way of thinking, which for us, it is a meta program, right? Yeah. So why I need to bring in this, because appreciation is something that I am trying to develop more, because I think that if I cannot see or recognize it in the world, it's because I don't have it inside my head, inside my mind, to see it outside of me. So I am trying to read and to develop these eyes for appreciation. And then I think I have this meta program to be flexibilized. And well, you brought some words here that I wrote them here, some of them, and then I will watch all the session again to pick more information to see what else I can bring to this program to myself. That's appreciation. So this is what I get from this session, and I thank you. More ideas to develop in my appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ines, for that. Maybe if I would just want to guide you, you mentioned about wanting to look at things from appreciation. It is in one of the Unleashing series, the self-actualization series, and there is a pattern which is called the sacralizing eye. To run a pattern in order to create your eyes to look through at things from the sacralizing perspective. Maybe you can check out with the trainers in Brazil if anyone has attended the self-actualization psychology series. So in one of them, we cover on the sacralizing eye. Yeah.
You mean the 4 or 5 trainings about self-actualization?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, I have done them, but I don't remember about this. I will check. Thank you so much for this.
I'll also check when I find that, and I'll send you which module it is.
Thank you.
It is a pattern for us to run on ourselves so that we move through the world using the sacralizing eyes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah. Moving to Aloysius. Go ahead, Aloysius. No? Good. We can't hear you, Aloysius.
Oh, actually, for me, it's a lot of revision here because for this past, I think more than 10 years, I've been engaging with civil society and trying to unite actually a lot of NGOs to build this so-called new Malaysia. And my training in NLP helped me so much. But I think on a personal level, my autistic son of 32 years old was my greatest teacher.
Oh, yeah.
Because what I learned from him was that I used to get very frustrated when he doesn't listen to me. He doesn't understand what I'm doing. Things mean different things to him. Then one LaSalle brother actually advised me. He says, don't try to change. Don't try to make them normal. Then he said some very beautiful advice. He says, learn acceptance. And for me, after practicing that in my work as a political secretary before, and now as a civil society leader, I find, like we say about meanings, I cannot control what happens to me, but I can control the meaning I want to give what happens to me. And that took me to the spiritual part where I went to theology as my reference point, because we talk about what is my measurement to know whether I'm on the right path or not. So I want to thank you so much because for me, the little time that I spent marketing NLP for my brother, that marketing part itself helped me to realize that at the end of the day, the meaning you give to what happens to you, it should be in your own control, not by letting circumstances decide to make me feel sad or happy. And when I learned that I have to learn to accept others as they are and not as I expect them to be. That gave more meaning to my life in the sense I was less frustrated because I did not allow what people did to me to decide how I should feel. And I think that's a bit of the meta thing that I learned, in NLP. And so, and one of the main point that you gave me too was very good, like sacralizing, I gave about 14 years of my life to come up with this Malaysia Baru concept. We are launching again on September the 16th, something very big. September the 16th, the civil society is going to restore back the Rukun Negara for the country. Because the Rukun Negara gave us so much of meaning for us as a nation. And if we do not go back to it, I believe, so many people tell me, hey, that one never worked, that doesn't work because, I said, that's the meaning you give to it, and that doesn't mean that it didn't work in the past. I mean, it cannot work. And this is why I think, that's why I talked to you earlier. I got to catch up with you again because when I do my workshops and all that, I'm trying, our society, we talk about racial problems. I said, it's not a problem actually. It is the meanings we give to what the so-called people who control the media, especially the politicians, they politicize even religion, they politicize race. But on the ground, I see through the MCO period, to the Banjir period, Malaysians are very, very loving, caring people. But we have allowed our so-called leaders who have failed to leave the Rukun Negara, to tell us that, to make us feel that it does not work. So, and why I say Rukun Negara, because in my company brochure itself, I put that I only work with companies in Malaysia who want to subscribe to Rukun Negara. So they say, oh, I'm sacralizing it. I said, well, that's a choice I made, because I believe that when I go into the meanings of the various principles in the Rukun Negara, it makes a lot of sense. But just because some politicians in the past did not live up to it, that means it is not good. So for me, when I saw the title meaning, I said, hey, long time I didn't hear Mazuki, I must come back to it because actually life is all about meanings, the meanings you give, or now I put the meanings you allow other people to give you also. That's very important, and that shouldn't happen because I know the book that who is that? What's the name? What's our founder, Meta NLP? What's his name?
Michael.
Michael and the other guy, the what do you call it? Running your brain, managing your brain. At the end of the day, finally I came up with this actual paper that I wrote. Because to teach people how to come to dialogue with different races, I came up with a paper called "How People Make Decisions." And actually, I learned that from NLP. When something happens to you, what meaning you give to it will decide how you respond to it. And the meaning you give all depends on your own background, and you give meaning to your own belief system. And I believe that as I mix around with many different types of Malaysians, and I've got into this interfaith group, I say basically we're all the same. Basically, we're all the same. We are born to die. We're born to die. But in the COVID period, many people were so scared to go out. Then I used to say, I wrote an article. I said, is our nation in crisis, or we have a crisis of faith? So we live either by fear or you live by faith. And I believe NLP has got a big role to play for our country in the sense that people don't know how to dialogue. People don't know how to engage. And we let all the past so-called term of reference in the past, like you said, but one race talking about, all Indians are like that, all Chinese are like that. Hey, that doesn't work anymore. There's no such thing in the globalized world. Labeling, tribalizing and all that. But we need to learn to engage and don't be afraid of engagement. Because in engagement, I find that a lot of things that I have to get rid of myself, my own negative thinking of how I respond to others. Because that expectation, frustration can only happen if I expect things to happen the way I think it should happen. But that's not what life is all about. It's all about accepting each other as they are, and then moving forward by compassion, listening, and try to give more meaning in our life. I was listening to once, was that as long as we are alive, we must find meaning to why we are alive, you know, not just exist, you know, not just exist. And I think it's very making meanings in our that are meaningful is very real. Otherwise, why do I wake up in the morning?
Yeah.
Do I just exist? So I actually I'm so happy to connect with you again, because I got to catch up with you, you know, because I have a center now in SS8, you know, and they all asked me actually where you learned this. I said Meta NLP lah. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing you again, Eli. Thank you. And I'd like to move on to Danielle. Go ahead, Danielle.
Yeah, first of all, thanks Marzuki for tonight's session. I love it because I think meaning to me, learning about meaning is definitely a life-changing and life-saving lesson. Yeah, because after learning about meaning, I was able to actually switch from very toxic or unhealthy thinking, the way of thinking, to a more healthy and resourceful thinking by just changing the meaning I had on maybe on the situation or on some people or on the problem that I had. And nowadays, I felt that it's really needed for me, especially in this very challenging world. Sometimes I feel stressful at work, dealing with very challenging situations. And I realized that the moment I change the meaning, I look at it, it helps me to sail through the challenges in a very resourceful way and less stressful way. So I definitely think that learning about meaning is really important, and also to be able to apply it really helped me improve my life a lot. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate that, Danielle. Move on to Guat Ching. Go ahead, Guat Ching.
Thank you, Marzuki. My key takeaway, be careful with the meaning that you created. Example, if you scold yourself stupid when you make mistake, then you become more stupid. If you tell yourself, I have discovered 100 ways how to avoid mistake, you get more wisdom.
Thank you, Guat Ching. And moving on to Tessie. Go ahead, Tessie.
It was very meaningful. Thank you so much. The part that, you know, is a wake-up call for me is to ask myself how much meaning I apportion or attribute to whatever's going on. And I thought about my lifestyle, I thought about family, I thought about my work, my finances. And, you know, I imagine this roulette table or poker table where you have these chips, and then you say family, and how much are you going in for, you know, and you say work life, how much are you betting on your work life? And I was thinking, what if I put people around the table and ask them to bet how much meaning they attribute to those things that I labeled, you know, family or friendship or so. So it was an interesting visual in my head. So that was, yeah, it reminds me what to put in and how much to put in.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much. So that's a deliberate meaning making on the life centers. That's an interesting visual that you have transferred to me. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. And last but not least, Chuck Siu, go ahead. Is there anything that you'd like to say, Chuck Siu?
Yes.
I can't hear you, Chuck Siu.
Can you hear me now?
No. Oh dear.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Distorted. The sound is distorted.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Ah, now yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. yeah, to me, I mean, to make it simple is first is from the cognitive distortion to the empowering thingy. To me, I think very layman is we have to change our negative thinking to a positive one and make sense out of it to create our own meaning. And once we have our own meaning, we need to, I mean, go up another level, so-called by sacralizing it, so that it will make us unstoppable to achieve that particular thing, which is carry the meaning to us. Yeah, so that is my takeaway for today. It's just like I always tell my new staff, we are not doing sales. We are making a difference. That is how I sacralizing sales to another level. We are not doing sales. We are making a difference. Making a difference to what? To our prospective customer. Then and later on, people sign up with us. We are making a difference to the company. When we make a difference to the company, then of course we are making a difference to the people who are working with us. Why? When we achieve the sales target, the company have the revenue, then they are able to pay good. They are able to pay the good bonus and good increment in the following years. Everybody get the money, they can improve their lives or whatever, all kind of thing. They spend money. So first thing, we make a difference to the students, to the prospective customer, then make a difference to the company, and eventually make a difference to the people working with us. And ultimately, we make a difference to the society we are living in. Just imagine a group of 1,000 over people having 3-4 month bonus in their pocket and spend in the area where they are living in. This is how we make a difference to the society we live in. This is how I sacralizing sales to making a difference. This is my takeaway.
Right. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. So with that, we've come to the end of the session. I really appreciate your sharing with me your takeaway. And I really appreciate your being here, your time. And I hope that with what you have taken away from this session, this evening, this morning, is something that will enrich your life. So with that, I would like again to say thank you to all of you. And I look forward to meeting all of you again in the next session. So good night and good morning and God bless all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.